welcome to episode 422 of the DFO Rundown, as always brought to you by Bet365. It's never ordinary. Bet365. Get in the game. Use the promo code NATION, NATION. Great deals on NFL, NHL, 15 games this Friday. Today, check it out at Bet365. I'm Jason Gregor. We welcome in Mike Rupp, fresh off of a Thanksgiving in the United States. Yes. And Rupper, how much of an are you on Thanksgiving? Like, is it 2 plates? Is it 3 plates? Is it an all-day event for you? How is it?
So I'm usually a complete glutton on those days. I would say yesterday, though, so just full transparency, I had like a 2.5, 3 hour drive. We drove up to Connecticut, and we just kind of were there for the day. So there and then back. So I'm one of those where when I'm driving, I literally have to stuff my face every second I'm snacking the entire time driving to stay awake. That's what keeps me alert. So I took that into account, and I had like a plate and a half, and I actually was like, which is very unlike me, I avoided dessert because I had a bunch of junk in the car that I needed to eat on the way home just to stay awake. But so I'm usually pretty heavy days on Thanksgiving, probably the way it's supposed to be, right?
So you have to eat to stay awake when you drive?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like distant driving. Yeah. Because it's like, I've gone through it all, man. I've gone through, you throw a chew in while you're driving. I didn't want to do that anymore. So I wanted to kind of kick that. So then it's like, I got to literally just eat snacks the whole way. So it's like, if my mouth is moving, I'm alert, listening to music, doing whatever. But usually the longer the trip, the more I feel like crap when I get there, because I've been just eating so much junk on the way.
Well, I could see that. Yeah, you're not like, you got to start playing some games with the family in the car to keep you motivated. That's
everyone else. No, they're not all sleeping, but it's a bad. I don't know what it is. But it's not a good thing. Because usually when I got home last night, I'm like, I feel like I'll eat, like when I'm talking, Greg, I'm talking like I'll eat a giant bag of licorice. I'll eat like a full adult size bag of chips. Like I'm talking like legitimate, just eat my face off while I'm driving.
Everything. That is like, it's funny you mentioned Twizzlers. Now, are you red or black?
Oh, I love black Twizzlers, but red is what I would buy for the car ride.
Yeah. Twizzlers are perfect because you know what? You can't make a mess. Like the fact you're eating chips, that's bold, because chips, your seat you got chips all over the place. It's remnants everywhere, guaranteed. You get out of your seat, and there's chips on this. Oh, yeah. I don't eat much in my car anymore. I used to lots, but Twizzlers I definitely can eat. But I've graduated now. When I'm on the road trip, like I have banana and stuff. Like, yeah, it's kind of lame. I'm like healthy eater even when I'm on a road trip. But I don't need to eat. If the music's on, like when I put it in cruise control, I just relax and I don't get tired. I'm just like, I'm alert. I can drive for hours. Like, we go to the mountains from my house. I'm the dad who's, are we getting there in good time? I'm all about good time, right? Like I know.
Are you limiting bathroom breaks?
100%, man. It's like, you can hold it for a bit. Like I am all about getting there in good time for sure. I'll try to leave. I'll be like, hey, son, wife, you guys try to sleep. No problem. I'm going. Boom. Got cruise control. I know you find the certain highways where, what's the speed limit I can go to that's not going to give me a ticket. And I'm right there and I'm on cruise control and away you go. And so I actually kind of like the thrill of seeing if you can beat because I'll honestly, my wife's like, you're an idiot. And I'll track exactly from the minute I leave the house to the minute our condo in Canmore to see how long it takes. And I've got it pretty much down to a T on where we can go. Right. And so even if I stop, I'll pause my time in my head because I'm like, well, this is downtime. This doesn't count. Right. So that's my way of staying sharp.
That would keep you going. Keep the adrenaline
going. Making good time, man. Like that is, you're not the making good time guy. Like I love it. It's like a win if I can make good time to get to my destination.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah. So it's fun. It is yesterday, no NHL. There's only the one game on Tuesday, heavy Wednesdays, heavy Fridays. And since we spoke, the Vancouver Canucks came out. Now, very different because it was almost to the day that the Canucks, the report came out that, they're listening on veterans. We had heard the same thing from the Rangers a year ago, Rupper. And since then, the Rangers have the 27th most points in the NHL in a calendar year since Chris Drury put that memo out. So it didn't work for his team because they were actually, they were 12-6-1 prior to that. And now they're below 500. But the Canucks are different. They're a team that's looking to trade, but we've talked about Quinn Hughes. So today I want to look at, when you look at the Canucks, I actually think they've got quite a few players that opposing teams would be interested in. So I want you to list like your top 3 or 4 guys that you're an opposing GM. You're like, okay, this is the guy I'm looking at and why. And we'll see how similar our lists are.
Okay. Well, so the one thing that kind of was tricky, and some of the guys that are the most, you could look at every roster is probably this way, because if you get the full no trade, that pretty much means that you're pretty valuable, right? Or you negotiate that into your deal. But some of the guys that I think are really interesting for me to go somewhere else are some of those guys. So I'll put a couple of them on the list. I didn't want to put too many though, because at the end of the day, you still got an ice lineup there in Vancouver. So I think the most valuable guy, the guy that's going to get the most attention, it's probably what most people would agree is Kiefer Sherwood. I mean, that's the player that I think would be every playoff team would like to add a guy like that, because he gives you some flexibility and where you can use him in your lineup, but he also provides the one thing that's a little bit of a dying breed. Like, he hits everything that moves. He's playoff hockey. He's the type of player you want. So I went with him. And again, I didn't really come up with a team, because I think every playoff team, I think some in particular need them. I think the New Jersey Devils are a team that would need a player like that. They don't have a ton of physical demeanor that he does. But he'd be the one that kind of jump out to me as being the best. And then Evander Kane is probably the other one, just as far as some of the same things we just talked about. And both these guys obviously are on expiring deals, so that makes it as rentals. I don't know. Those are the 2 big ones. What do you got as far as your higher end guys?
Well, it's funny between Kane and Sherwood because they're similar. Kane's obviously been a better goal scorer historically in his career. Sherwood's off to a great start. I see some people try, oh yeah, I know he's red hot, he's not going to continue it. Well, of course he's not going to score 40 goals, right? Yeah. Not a 40 goal scorer. But it could keep for sure if he scores you 25. I think people don't realize how few players in the NHL score 25 goals a year now. Uh-huh. It's not very much, right? So he's off to a good start. Kane, bigger. Kane's meaner's got a little bit more playoff experience. Those are the 2 guys. Like, to me, the number one team who needs one of them is the Carolina Hurricanes. It's not even close to me. Yeah. Carolina Hurricanes have a lot of forwards who are similar. And if you bring in someone who, and everybody seems to fit into Carolina because of how Rod Brindamore, right? So if you're worried that, a guy's going to try to beat to his own drum, it's never really seemed to work in Carolina. You come in there, it does. Like, look, Mikko Rantanen came in. He was like, I don't think I'm going to stay here. All right, you're out. And, and they just kept going on. But I look at Carolina as the team for certain. Now, Sherwood's obviously only $1.5 million. So his cap hit, especially with the new cap penalty rules, he's very, or not penalty rules, but the salary cap in the playoffs. His contract makes him even more valuable because team retains it. It's half. It's still only 1.5. Like that's a bargain, right? Your $750K cap hit for him in the playoffs, right? Now Kane's going to be 2.7, which isn't bad, but it's still significantly more, almost 4 times more. So your flexibility is there. Now Kane's bigger. He's more of a proven playoff performer historically. So I understand that, but those 2 guys for certain, and Kiefer Sherwood, I think there's the potential to say, hey, we could sign this guy, trade him, but also sign 100%. Him, right? So because I know he's having a good year, and I've seen, he's going to get $6 million. I'm like, I don't think he's getting $6 million. I could be wrong on that, but he's probably going to be a $4-5 million player, maybe. And there'll be lots of teams that look and say, here, this guy's a little bit of a late developer. The one thing he's done consistently is be physical. He kills penalties. He's quick. He's a very good forechecker. He scored 19 goals last year. So, he has 12 and he's on a really great start. If this guy scores 25, 26 again, you look and say, well, he's averaged 20 goals the last few years. Like, That's pretty consistent. That's pretty good. So I think he'll have a lot. The other guys on that team that I find interesting is a guy like Connor Garland. Now he's making $6 million on his next year deal, right? But you get him, you're looking, say, hey, we know what we're getting if we trade for him, and he doesn't have a no trade clause right now. So that's where if you trade for him, now you have him, and he's got a no trade clause that kicks in the following year. But we can keep him if we want. The guy they just signed, David Camp. If you're looking for a line center who can take faceoffs by the trade deadline, he could have some interest for you. Then you look at their back end. Tyler Meyer makes $3 million, and he's got a no trade now, but it goes limited next season. To me, there's some interest there. I'm not sure how high, to be honest. I think if Derek Forbort was healthy, Rupper, and gets off LTIR before the end of the regular season at expiring contract at $2 million, a guy who's played in the playoffs before, I think he's somebody who would have interest. But yeah, it's Kane and Sherwood for sure. And Sherwood's contract makes him the guy who's number one on the list. You mentioned New Jersey. I think that's a very good pick. I think Carolina is one. Edmonton could use him for sure. In Sherwood, they had Kane. I don't see them bringing Kane back. Would Vancouver trade him in the division? If Edmonton probably has to pay a higher price in order for that to happen. That's just how it's going to go. But here's the other thing. If you look at teams, so Colorado doesn't have their first, their second, or their third rounder right now for this coming draft. So that might impact them. Toronto doesn't have a first, Florida, Tampa, Dallas, Vegas, Edmonton. So all the teams that have been competitive here the last few years, none of them have a first rounder. And that could hurt them. Carolina does because they got Dallas's first rounder in the Rantanen deal, right? Even though they'd already traded away their first rounder to the Rangers. So I look at the top teams and you say, geez, we might not have, somebody else might say, well, we can give you a first. It's probably going to be 24 to 32, but none of these other teams can offer that. So then Vancouver's going to negotiate to try to get a higher prospect, right? Because I think Kiefer Sherwood, I don't know if he can get you a first, but he probably can get you a second and a decent prospect for a team. Right. And but Carolina and them are for sure the two top teams for me. The other team that I find could use a guy like that is Seattle. Now, I don't think Seattle's in the market to really do anything like that. And the other one is right down the road, Rupper. I still think the Anaheim Ducks, they got a lot of good young players, but Kiefer Sherwood to Anaheim would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, no, that would be a good one. Just to Anaheim to, if they're still in a position to kind of be in the hunt here, and I mean they should be. I still think they're a playoff team. One, while you're talking about it, one that kind of jumped up to me, just sitting here thinking about, is the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think that Sherwood would be one of those players. I mean, the way that Tampa is kind of quietly played themselves, that potentially they very easily could win that division now after just an absolutely putrid start for them. We know how much that organization values their third line going into the playoffs. And if things can keep progressing the way it is, and the way the East is kind of wide open, I think Tampa could look at it and say, hey, this is our year right now, taking advantage of maybe some other situations and with other teams. They would be one. And then I don't know why, and I don't even have them up right now looking at their cap situation. But I think the Florida Panthers are starting to turn into like the Vegas Golden Knights of the East, where they're just kind of in on everybody and everything, and they find ways to get and make these deals. I think either of those guys, whether you're talking Kane or even Sherwood, would be a good fit there. I like what you said about Connor Garland too. And the thing with all three of those guys, that's all, I guess it's kind of a moot point to say that, but those are all playoff type players. And when you talk about Kiefer Sherwood, yes, when you're talking about extension, potentially, you care about what his regular season production is. But I don't think any team sitting there saying, oh, well, Kiefer Sherwood might finish the season with X amount of goals. All they're looking at is, I want to see this guy in the playoffs, because that's where it can translate. And maybe it's not to the level of like a Sam Bennett winning a Conn Smythe, but there's something there where you can get more value come playoff time with a player like Kiefer Sherwood. The back end, and see, I don't know where they stop in Vancouver or where it goes, because they have some pretty good contracts, especially with the way we've seen things go in the last I guess, number of months, the kind of new market for certain players or defensemen and whatever you want to say. But on the back end, I just find them very interesting because they've got a guy. I'm going to pull him up here, Marcus Pettersson. I'm a big Marcus Pettersson guy.
5.5.
I know. That's a pretty. I think anytime you have defensemen or players in general that are signed long term at a really good rate, that's worth kicking the tires on for another team to come in and be like, because that's guaranteed. Marcus Pettersson is going to be at this rate for a long time. But I don't know how much Vancouver really wants to strip this down, how much them coming out and saying all veterans are available except for Quinn Hughes. I don't know how much they are saying that or meaning that or to what standard that goes. But Marcus Pettersson would be an intriguing one on the back end for me.
Yeah, he's
got a full no move though. That's my guy with the full no move.
Yeah. The challenge is about Quinn Hughes. Like, to me, if you start trading off 2 or 3 guys, to me, that's the beginning of the end for Quinn Hughes. I just don't see how Quinn Hughes is going to be like, oh, okay, I'll stay here. We're going to rebuild now.
Don't you feel like this is just the dance though? This is the dance that I'm a big Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin fan. So this is just kind of, though, I get the vibes of almost Chicago. I felt like when Chicago had Kane and Taves, they were trying to kind of turn the page, and nobody wanted to be the bad guy. No one wanted to say, well, these guys, because they're going to retire those jerseys. Like, no one wanted to say, well, we're moving on and we want to move on from these guys. So what they end up doing is they trade every player that Patrick Kane would want to play with, that he can create offense with. And it just almost make it to the point where these players need to ask, because they want it. It's public opinion in a lot of ways. I feel like the way this Quinn Hughes thing, or that statement that came out last week, it falls under that category because I think it's inevitable that he probably won't be back in Vancouver, Quinn. But you don't want to just say, all right, well, that's it, we're going to go trade him. Because then the narrative is always going to be they traded Quinn Hughes. But you need Quinn to come to you and say, I'm not going to re-sign here. Maybe it's best that whatever. I feel like this is always a battle that teams have when you're talking about franchise players, because it's public opinion. It does matter. So I think coming out and making that statement, all veterans are available except for Quinn Hughes, that's not something that Quinn Hughes wants to hear. So in some way, you're opening the door more so for Quinn to say, hey, this is what it is. If you have any problems with it, come talk to us. We'll try to, talk through this. So I don't know. That's just kind of the way I read that situation. Just trying to avoid being the bad guy to the fan base.
I wouldn't be surprised though. Vancouver, when it comes, they're going to offer him a contract, Rupper, that I think is going to be close to Kaprizov. I really believe that. I think they're going to look and say, hey, we got to keep this guy. The cap's going up. We're going to pay him. And if he wants to leave, it's going to be because he just simply wants to leave. But we're going to entice him with a boatload of money. And because right now you look at Kaprizov, he's making $3 million more than any other player in the league. And that's a pretty substantial gap between those two teams right now. So now on the other side of it, there is, and here's the other thing for Vancouver. If they go on a run, which anything's possible, then I'm sure the trade talk quiets down. So we'll see. Maybe this is a way to put a little pressure on guys. Doesn't always work. Ask the New York Rangers. There's lots of talk that the Edmonton Oilers need a goaltender. And Sharks are circling. I see a lot of people, Tristan Jarry's name, Jordan Binnington's name. There's Elvis Merzlikins. Edmonton's defensive play this year, Rupper. They've been a top 10 defensive team in the NHL the last few years. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the league right now. In the month of November, the expected save percentage. So for anybody out there, an expected save percentage is Clearsight Analytics calculates this with video and everything else. And they go, an average NHL goalie would be expected to have this save percentage based on the quality of shots that he faces. That's how that comes out, right? So average goal. In the month of November, Stuart Skinner's expected save percentage is .865. And Pickard's is .852. That's their expected save percentage in this month. So even if they're average goalies, that's what they're expected to say, because the defense has been awful. Yeah. On the season, like Edmonton, after being a top 10 defensive team for 2 years, they're in the bottom of a lot of defensive categories in their own zone on expected goals when it comes to screens and deflections and slot line shots and breakaways and other areas where they were anywhere from 3rd to 11th last year. It has fallen off a cliff. Now, I said at the start of the year, I didn't expect Edmonton to have both goalies by the trade deadline, and I still believe that. So do you think it's a get rid of Skinner? Is it get rid of Pickard and bring someone in to challenge Skinner? Or is it get rid of both? What do you think ultimately Stan Bowman does in net?
Yeah, I think there's a level, and I was reading your article on that. It was interesting because I think that's it's a great gauge on really what the team is giving up and how the goalies are. And if you look at it, especially as of late, Stuart Skinner hasn't been terrible. Like, he hasn't been terrible. He's been fine. I think they need more than fine because of what they're giving up right now. I think that he would, again, this is without looking at all the cap implications, but I think that the best move would be a 1A, 1B and just see what we got here, have some options. And I know that maybe some people could say, well, isn't that what you had last year? I remember how Pickard's numbers were in the playoffs as far as wins. But if you drew that back a little bit and looked underneath the hood, he wasn't phenomenal in those games. The team was playing pretty well and kind of covered up for some things. And that's not happening right now. So I think that there's a goalie market out there that's really, it's not an automatic. There's risk involved. And I think the one guy that jumps out to me there's certainly risk involved, but there's the upside is great. And that's Tristan Jarry. Tristan Jarry is a goaltender that I think where he makes what he makes. I've said this for years in Pittsburgh, and I know he's had his moments where he has not been very good. But he also has had some really long, really good stretches, 2-time All-Star, and where the amount of dollars he makes, I don't find that there's really any comps that have the projected or the ceiling that Tristan Jarry has. So I think that he has the ability to get to a level that he could be a legitimate starter across the board in the league. He has been that. He just hasn't been for a little stretch now. He's bounced back this year. He's been much better. But when you start looking at some of the goalies and hearing some of the names out there, I just think when you compare some of them, I've seen this kid. Like this guy can, when he's on, man, he can go. But the problem is, how is he going to look on an Edmonton team that's given up what they're giving up? How is any goalie going to look? Does it matter who the goalie is? If Edmonton doesn't clean it up, I don't think it matters who's between the pipes. But I think a great situation would be a Stuart Skinner / Tristan Jarry tandem. I think that could be something where if you can clean some things up, go into the playoffs with that and not be scared to just bring guys in, bring guys out as far as who's playing best, I think that can turn this thing around pretty good.
Well, they have to start playing better, right? That would be the easy thing, and just start there, and then see what and see what happens. But and practice time will help. They haven't had any practice time. The players have talked about it. I think emotionally they got to be way more engaged. Rupper, Matthias Ekholm said it's like we have this fog over us right now, plastic wrap fog, and there's some truth to that. I don't debate that, but and their saving grace is they're only 2 points out of the playoffs because there's a lot of overtime losses. There's a lot of media. You take out Colorado and maybe Dallas. Other than that, there's no, like, Minnesota's red hot right now, but they started terribly and now they're red hot, right? They've won 6 in a row. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. So, maybe they're starting to get into that category. But other than that, there's a lot of, there's just a lot of average for Edmonton. And like, if they can somehow beat Seattle, they're 1 point back of Seattle for third place in that division all of a sudden, despite playing well below their standards. So I don't think they'll panic, but I think the best play would be to have Skinner and another goalie. I would lean towards Elvis Merzlikins more than I would Tristan Jarry. I'm not sure I've seen enough of Tristan Jarry yet to be like, okay, like, yeah, but goalie's voodoo. So you can go from one year to the next, no problem. Elvis Merzlikins, I still think, you go back to, the last few years for him, he hasn't been on a good team. His save percentage has been either slightly above or right at expected. So he hasn't played poorly. He's kind of played in the situation he's been in. Them being a good team. He's athletic. He can be inconsistent, but he moves well. Now it's his cap it. I don't think they can afford both. So that's the problem. But
what's Merzlikins at?
Someone that I'd be, he's at 5.4 for this year and next year. Right.
Okay.
Where do you come out on Binnington?
So Binnington is he's kind of the wild card. He kind of always is the wild card because we've seen him be that big game Jordan Binnington, saw him be very good at Four Nations. We've seen him win a Stanley Cup and was awesome that year. But that was quite some time ago. And he showed that he could still do it against Four Nations. But like this team, Edmonton needs to get on a bit of a run to get in now. And he has not been good this year. And he hasn't been good over the regular season if you date it back a couple seasons. So, yeah, I don't know. Like that's the one thing. All of these are going to be big risks involved. But that's why I think you still have to have, like you mentioned, Stuart Skinner involved because you don't know if it's going to work out. You don't know if one guy's going to grab it or the new guy, if you get him, is going to run with it. But then you still have Stuart Skinner. And you can always go back to one of these guys if need be. But, yeah, big game Jordan Binnington, I think it's a real thing. I think he will be we'll be watching him at the Olympics because of his pedigree and what he's won. But he makes me a little nervous. So, I don't know where I'm at on him. I'd say of those three that we mentioned, I probably would lean towards Jordan Binnington just because of he's won. And I find that when you need that big moment, Binner's kind of given that to you. Although in the time in between those big moments, he hasn't been that great. So, yeah, it's tough. And it's tough to picture what the team what any of these goalies would look like with the current Edmonton Oilers play in front of them. Like that's the one kicker for me.
Wow, it is. That's totally valid. And everybody says, big game Binnington. He had allowed 9 goals on 75 shots. He didn't have a 900 save percentage in any of the preliminary round games. Right. And then he allowed 3 goals in every game. So, but
it was the overtime. I
know the final was great. Right. And it was really, in overtime, he made some big saves. There's no question about that. But when I look at his overall numbers the last 2 years in St. Louis, it's been a hill like this. So yes, did he come up big for one game? No question. That's one game, right? I can Stuart Skinner in 2024 stole game 6 against Dallas in Edmonton. They got outshot 34-10, right? He stole. So that's a big game because if Edmonton loses that game, they might go to Dallas and lose the series, right? He's had other big games. So you can do 1 or 2. I'm not sold. Like, I think the Binnington, he won a cup 7 years ago. Do you know how many goalies have won cups in the last 40 years on different teams where they were the starting goalie? 2.
Not many.
Mike Vernon won in 89 with the Flames, and then he won in 97 with Detroit. And then Patrick Waugh won 86 in Montreal and 93 93 again with Montreal, and then 96 with Colorado. Now, the second team those guys won with Rupper was in the non-cap era where Detroit, Colorado, Dallas, the Rangers, and New Jersey were basically the 5 teams, and they won all the cups and they spent all the money, right? Yeah. So no one else has done it. And he won a cup 7 years ago. But even like to win cups 7 years apart is extremely difficult. Fleury did it with Pittsburgh from 2009, and then he played in 2017, but he didn't play in the Stanley Cup final. Right? Matt Murray did. Now, he played 15 games up till the Stanley Cup final, but he didn't play in the Cup final. So I think if Edmonton's goal is to win a cup, I'm going off of history and recent play. Binnington wouldn't be the guy I would look at. Yeah.
No, it's fair. It's fair. I don't know, man. It's just you need that. I know what you're saying with Stuart Skinner because Stuart Skinner has had those moments, and I just hate how it seems like, it's when over the last number of years, Stuart Skinner has been a good goalie, but when you need that one save, he hasn't made that one save that you need, or have that one hallmark game that you need. Jordan Binnington's like the opposite. Jordan Binnington hasn't had much other things except those moments. And so I think it almost he is, in some ways, he's got this image, whether it's fair or not, or accurate or not. It's almost like a Sam Bennett in goal. You know what I mean? Like, just set the table and let him do his thing when the moment is right. And that's what Sam Bennett got paid to do now. And you can see in the regular season, he hasn't done much now, but I think the hope is that you get to the postseason. Let's see if he can kind of get that Conn Smythe level again. That's Jordan Binnington. So I don't know. I just think right now, goalies playing better. There are certainly more goalies playing better than Jordan Binnington, but there's just something with him. I don't know. This sounds really stupid to say, but remember when he did the whole "do I look nervous" thing? Like, he just seems like he's cut from a different cloth, like mentally. And I think that, as dumb as that sounds, I want goalies that are like that. I want a demeanor like that. And that's something that I think he'll be able to handle it, elevate in certain roles. And I think that those moments that he's had, it doesn't really matter what he does in between. But when he has that big game moment, I expect Jordan Binnington to elevate his game and come out on top.
Yeah, and that's fair. I had a former teammate of his say, there's lots of guys that seem the bigger the moment, he gets cockier, but he goes, he backs it up, and he, like, that's who he's not trying to fake the cocky and the swagger. That's who he is. And, it shows. So that's good. I don't discount that, but I look back at Four Nations and everyone remembers the last game, but the first three games, he was just meh. Yeah. Right. He was okay. Right. It was below 900 in every game, allowed 3 goals in every game. And you're kind of like, well, so he had one big game, no question. And really the overtime is where he was awesome. And so that's great. Now, if they had both of them, that would probably be okay, because both of them have a tendency maybe to slip up every now and then, right? So then you could go to the other guy possibly, but financially, I don't think that works. I think a little bit of the myth and the legend of Binnington is carrying them more than the actual statistics right now.
Yeah. That's fair.
According to Clearsight Analytics, he is ranked 74th out of 75 goalies in goals saved above expected, and then expected save percentage. Like, he hasn't played very well this year. Now, maybe that changes. Maybe the team's not competitive. I don't know, but that's a pretty glaring number right now. Like, Skinner is 54th out of 75, and you're going to trade for the 74th guy and think that's going to be way better. Well, I'll tell you right now, you can bring in any goalie. Well, maybe Sorokin could do it because he's doing it in Long Island, and play behind this porous of a defense, it ain't going to win. So,
yeah. No, you're not. It doesn't matter. I think that the bigger story is they got to start defending to their capabilities and what they've done in the past, because they've shown in the past they can take average to better than average goaltending and go to the Stanley Cup Finals. If they don't do that, I don't care. Hey, there's no magic formula of who they're going to bring in. I will say a couple of the guys that we mentioned, I think they would go really well. I think they need a better puck handling goaltender. The Stuart Skinner's fine. Tristan Jarry's incredible, and so is Jordan Binnington. So that could do a lot, fair, especially when you're talking about some of the talented players in Edmonton. If you can just alleviate that pressure when from the opposing team's forecheck and bypass and get it up ice, I mean, that could serve them very well and spend less time in their own zone.
Now, speaking of goalies, they're going to have some fun right now because there's some young goalies playing really well. So you look at Spencer Knight, Askarov, Dostal, Wallstedt suddenly in Minnesota is on fire. So, Rupper, of those 4, or maybe an other, which one do you think is going to be first to win the Vezina trophy, or at least be a finalist for the Vezina trophy? Which one do you think has the most likelihood to really emerge as a top goalie moving forward in the NHL?
Oh, man. That is so tough. They're all studs. They're all playing really well right now. But I think that when you ask that question, I think it matters what team turns the corner the fastest and can help in certain areas. And I'd say of those teams, well, Minnesota's been playing pretty darn well, especially with Wallstedt and net. Anaheim with Dostal has been I'm probably leaning more towards those two guys, but I like the talent maybe more in Askarov and Knight and what they're doing. I'm going to go with Dostal just because if we're going on who can race the clock to get some Vezina nominees, I think that's where Anaheim's team's going. I think Anaheim's team is going to be a dominant team in the Pacific next year, the year after, in the very near future. But then again, you never know with some of these other ones, like Askarov, what he's doing lately. I mean, what happens if next year even? I mean, they're in the hunt right now. But what if San Jose makes the playoffs? Like, he's going to be in consideration for a Vezina. So it's hard to really put it on that. I'm going to say though, I'm going to say Dostal. I've seen a little bit more from him as far as even when Anaheim has stunk, he's had some pretty spectacular moments and runs in Anaheim there.
Well, you look at Spencer Knight, he's a little bit older. So, historically on goalies, you get that 25 range and a lot of goalies pop there. So that's the one thing he has going for him. Right now, Spencer Knight's in the running for the Vezina. I know that the Blackhawks probably are going to fall out and not be a playoff team, but if he keeps hovering around 920, 918, he's got a below 2.5 goals against average, his saves above expected are spectacular. He's been really good. And this was a guy who a few years ago, remember, Florida signed him to a 3-year deal at $4.5 million. Right before they started their runs to the cup, because they weren't sure about Bobrovsky. They thought this guy would be there. And then, obviously he took some steps back like a young goalie does. I think Spencer Knight has a really good chance. Chicago's got some really good young defensemen that are coming. And I think that's a team that's on the rise here in the next few years as well. Obviously, Connor Bedard's having a great year, and Frank Nazar, they've got some players there for certain. But I look at Wallsted's had 8 games and they've been unreal. 6-0-2. He's got 3 shutouts. It's wild good. Yeah. I think he probably is going to be hard pressed because I got Gustafsson and his new contract kicks in next year, that they probably split duties for a bit. So that's going to hamper him somewhat. And I think in a year or two, because I know everybody gets people are talking about, they should trade Gustafsson right now. I'm like, it's 8 games. Let's pump the brakes. Yeah. Teams don't even have a scouting report yet on goalies, right? We've seen goalies go up and down, and look at Markstrom, 920, 890, 922, 902, and he's considered a pretty good goalie. So it's hard to do. And I think Minnesota's in a great spot to just wait and kind of split duties and then give Wallstedt more games and maybe gets to 100 starts. And you're like, okay, now this guy's ready to be our starter. That's how it should be. I think rushing guys into the starter role doesn't help them, aka Stuart Skinner. I think that's a little advantage. Like Spencer Knight's had more time around the team where he's being a backup a little bit. He's can be that number one guy. Askarov is the wild card because his numbers in San Jose, you watch their team, their defense isn't very good, Rupper. And he's keeping games closer. And we saw the Colorado game here, the big boys decide to flex, and San Jose's defense just isn't there yet to handle the top dogs. But it's a good young goalie crop. I like your pick of Dostal because the Ducks might be the better team, but I'm actually going to go Spencer Knight. I think Spencer Knight is the guy for me.
You bring up a good point, though, because the way that we are, the analytics and everything is evolving and changing, and we're getting more and more, I guess, focused on that. The goal save above expected. So me saying Anaheim based off of them being a better team than a lot of these other teams, minus Minnesota, who is a good squad, they're not great defensively, but they don't give up what normally the looks of a Chicago, although Chicago's numbers are really good defensively this year, or San Jose. So I wonder how much that goes into it as well. Now that we're starting to pay attention more towards, hey, the average goalie would let this amount in. These goalies have a positive of 14 goals saved above expected. That's a measurement now that I think comes on bad teams, or maybe not bad teams that aren't as good. You get some of those measurements. So it very well could feed into one of those other teams as well, whether it's San Jose, Chicago, but all those guys, man, it's all just really unique stories on how they made it, how they got their chance. I mean, it's pretty crazy when you think about it, but it's a nice crop of goaltenders right now.
Yeah, well, you look at like right now, goals saved above expected. Jeremy Swayman is one. Right is two. Then Logan Thompson, Connor Hellebuck, Andre Vasilevsky, Igor Shesterkin, Darcy Kemper, Sorokin, Jet Greaves, and Lucas Dostal. So Dostal and Knight are the two of the young guys that are in the top 10. Askarov is 13th, and we go down the list. Wallstedt, now he's only played 8 games. He's already at 6.2, which is almost 1 per game, which is wild. So yeah, they've all got pretty good numbers so far, and it's going to be a real good. Like I think the next crop of goalies, we're starting to see it, and that's exciting. If you're a Ducks fan, or you're a Hawks fan, or a Wild fan, you should be pretty excited about what the Sharks as well, what the future holds there. Because if you have a goalie, it can cover up
all in the West.
Yeah. Well, because the West, it's kind of cyclical, right? Like you go back and you look in the East there for a while, the East sucked. And then they got Crosby and they got Ovechkin. They got a lot of the top dogs for a long time. And now it's a little bit of the West turn. You'll probably see that switch again here. Now the Islanders got lucky and won the lottery and got Schaefer, but that's definitely going to give them a real young stud. Now sticking with goaltending before we bring in Pat, I mentioned Connor Hellebuck and where he was. The Winnipeg Jets are 0-3. They were 12-7 with Hellebuck, 5 games above 500, like legit 5 games above 500. And I felt like if they could just stay 500 when he's gone, they'll be in the mix. Well, they're 0-3 already, and Rupper, now they're starting a 6-game and 9-day stretch. The Jets, considering Minnesota's on fire, Dallas, Colorado, the Jets, by the time Hellebuck comes back, they could find themselves in a deep hole here. They've got to really wake up on this upcoming stretch of games for the Jets.
Yeah, no, they do. That's the one thing. Like we've always kind of thought this with the Jets, though. Like with Hellebuck, like they never really have had. You don't really need that. Same thing as Tampa with Vasilevsky. Like you haven't had an amazing backup option, although you've had some fine goaltending over the years. But it's like when you're without Connor Hellebuck, you know that you're not as good. But I also think that this is a team that has got up some of their numbers this year. They're not defending to the level that they have in the past. I mean, This is a top 5 offensive team last year, a top 5 defensive team last year. You had the Hart Trophy winner, the Vezina winner, like a lot of things that they aren't this year. So when you take Helly out of that situation, it's a little bit of a moment of truth just to find out what we're working with for the Winnipeg Jets. But I'm a little bit concerned. I'm a little concerned. I mean, I think that it's a bit of a litmus test of where you're at when you lose your best player. I mean, you could say the same thing about the New Jersey Devils. I'm concerned how they look without Jack Hughes, and that's been an ongoing thing. So now you move it over to Winnipeg here, and like they need to get their defensive game back. They need to find ways to limit and be very predictable for whomever their goaltender is, and that hasn't really been them necessarily. This year to the level. They haven't been terrible, but it's not the level that they're built on. Like this is a dominant defensive team, and they haven't been that yet.
No, they haven't. And so they're 0-3 without him. And they've played some good teams in that stretch, right? Minnesota, Carolina. So today they're in Carolina. Then they've got Nashville tomorrow. Then they're in Buffalo on Monday, in Montreal next Wednesday, home for 1 day against Buffalo, and then they got a tough back-to-back the next night in Edmonton. That Winnipeg to Edmonton back-to-back is not easy. It's a lot of travel. So that's 6 games in 9 days, Rupper, without your starting goalie. So that means, you've got the back-to-back twice. So you're probably going to have to play your third-string goalie twice in their next 6 games. Like, Mark Scheifele and others, like maybe their offense is going to have to carry them, but man, like if you're the Jets, you got to find a way to go 2-3-1 or something. But if you go like 1-5, all of a sudden you're 1-8 now without Hellebuck. And that's like, it just, now the pressure mounts, right? And you're right about their defense, because last year, Hellebuck had one of the best goalie environments in the NHL. And that's why actually, to your earlier point, like Darcy Kemper's numbers were almost identical to Hellebuck, but he had a tougher environment. He probably should have won the Vezina if you're going off of that. But Hellebuck won it, and that's fine. He's a good goalie. But now he hasn't had one of the best environments. The Jets haven't been as good defensively, and he's been great. Like, he was excellent for them. And that's why I think he's a bigger loss than Hughes is for New Jersey, because A, Hughes isn't a goalie, and B, New Jersey's got enough other depth. You say, hey, we can slug along. Hellebuck is a one guy. Their whole team's going to have to play better. It's the one team that I watch for that their season might not be able to be recaptured if they go, 7, 8, 9 games under 500 without Hellebuck here. Like, they got to get going very quickly here. Otherwise, they could be in trouble.
So I know that when we just look at them from last year to this year too. So I know Nikolai Ehlers has not been lighting the world on fire in Carolina, but when he's healthy, he's a really good fit in Winnipeg. So like, when you knew you were losing that type of player on a team that scored a lot of goals last year, you knew maybe it would have to look a little bit different. You have to lean in your defensive game a little bit more. That's like we just mentioned, that's where the game slipped, I feel. And so not only did they get a little less talented offensively, they're not playing to the structure that they're used to playing defensively. So yeah, they got to navigate this. Those 6 games, 9 nights, that's no joke. I think this is a little bit of a telltale on who they are and what their needs are, or just really where the team's at right now. So maybe this is like a blessing in disguise, not having Hellebuck, because I think this is going to be a real litmus test for them in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's just something to watch, Jets fans, and really fans of the Central Division, because if you're Utah, here's an opportunity for you to really kind of gain some ground and maybe separate. Same with the Blackhawks. If they want to stay in the race, that you play well here, you can separate yourself a little bit more. And then, like, I know we've seen teams do it. Everybody remembers the 2019 Blues, and it works every now and then, but coming from behind is hard. If it's like a 10-point deficit or something, you get into the new year. And that's something the Jets could be facing here. Like, I honestly think the next 10 days will tell us a lot about the Jets and where their season could be headed. So watch for that. Yeah. Let's bring in Pat Puff to the pod. Patty, how you doing?
I am doing great. Happy Friday. Let's do fill in the blank today, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary. Bet365, download the app, get in on the game, use code NATION. Bet365 must be 19 or older. Now, I was a little nervous because I was worried you guys were going to talk about my question with Hellebuck here, and you kind of set me up perfectly, although I am curious. I'm gonna make this a little bit of a double fill in the blank here. So my question would be, what would Eric Comrie have to do to be considered successful in this run without Hellebuck? But with that being said, if he doesn't, Hellebuck is plus 2,500 to win the Vezina. Now, I just want to set up the scenario where if Comrie doesn't hold things together in Winnipeg for the next month or so until Hellebuck's back, what would he have to do to win the Vezina after the injury? Because plus 2,500, if there's a goalie in the NHL that can have an unbelievable run and bring the Jets back into a playoff spot, I think it's Hellebuck. So I'm curious with those two, what would Comrie have to do to stay strong, and what would Hellebuck have to do to bring them back to get into the Vezina conversation? Greg's.
It's a good question. And I guess I should say they're 1-3 because Hellebuck's last game was Calgary, and then the next game Comrie played. Then they announced the injury, but since they announced he's 0-3, but technically they're 1-3. Comrie, I think if Comrie goes 500, I just look at win. I don't even care what his save percentage is. I don't care what his goals against is. If he's 500, that'll be good enough, and the Jets I think will stay in. Then they get Hellebuck back, and then B, Hellebuck would have to go all world. If he misses 6 weeks, he's going to miss too much time to win the Vezina.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because the Vezina is funny because you can look in recent years too. The voting for the Vezina, it matters how many games played. Like that's something that there's been some really nice storylines over the last few years where you don't get much love in that department because the games played aren't there. And I don't know where his numbers would necessarily be. And quite frankly, missing that time, does that going into the season, everything was, we're going to try to get some less starts so we have more Connor Hellebuck come playoff time. But depending on how this next stretch goes, like, do you just put pedal to the metal with Connor Hellebuck, and then that narrative's out the window now, and you're just trying to make up ground? So I agree, about 500. I would say you're looking at, what'd you say? There was 6 games, 9 days. Is that what you said?
Yeah, 6 games in 9 days starting today.
Yeah, I'd say like whatever. If you can get I don't know, man. Just around 500. Just you stay afloat. I mean, right now with the overtimes, how many overtimes are played every single night? Like just to be in there, I think they'll be fine. And then you hope that Connor Hellebuck can get this team kind of back going. But I mean, this is going off of what we said about the Edmonton Oilers not to that degree, but the team needs to be playing better in front of whatever goaltender it is in Winnipeg. So this is the time where that is going to be what keeps you afloat more so, I think, than the goaltending.
That's fair. I think the Vezina is one of the more interesting futures to look at right now. I mean, Logan Thompson's playing great, but if Washington falls in the standings, I mean, where is that going to lead him? And Vasilevsky, I mean, the Lightning have been hot, so I don't mind that bet at all. Even Wedgewood at plus 2,500. Like if Colorado just dominates the rest of the season, I know he's going to split time, but it's interesting. This one could kind of go anywhere right now with Hellebuck falling off. Usually it's him versus the field, so I think that one's going to be fun to watch throughout the season. My next question for you, we've talked a lot about Vancouver and Nashville being sellers this season, and at the start of the season it was the Penguins in Boston, but they started playing better. So my question is, fill in the blank, who is the next team you think is trending down that no one's really talking about that could become sellers in the next few months if they keep slipping? And I'm thinking myself, maybe it's Seattle. What do you think, Mike?
I mean, I don't know if this one would be all that much of a surprise. I mean, but it's obviously the St. Louis Blues, but I think that's pretty predictable and kind of where they're at. And they more or less have kind of said that. I kind of feel like, oh man, the Buffalo Sabres, I know they're in last place, but like they've got some pieces there where I'm like, I think that that's a team that could be a seller pretty soon, pretty quick. So again, that's not going to be a surprise to many people considering their last place in the East. I'll try to give you a more attractive one. I don't know. I mean, why don't I think Montreal is going to be continuing to fall, but I don't really think they're going to make any big moves and just become sellers. So yeah, I'll probably just stick with like a Buffalo or St. Louis.
Seattle's a not bad choice. I'm still not sold on them. Their team, and I know they're not in it right now, but I am intrigued to see, like, the Penguins are going to fall. So can I say them? I think the Penguins are going to fall. They've started to fall, and I think they'll be a seller, which we always expected them to be. But after 10 games, some people are like, oh, they might be buyers. I'm like, pump the brakes. It's 10 games.
No.
The New York Rangers, Rupp, to me, are the team to watch. As I mentioned, since a year ago when they made the announcement, they sent out the memo, guys are available. They've got the 27th best record in the NHL. It's a full count, 80. I think it's actually 83 games. It's not working right now in New York. Now, Panarin is a pending UFA. And even at 50%, you look at what his, he's still a 5 player. Well, 5.75, I guess what it would be. Would teams be interested in him? If the Rangers don't think they can sign him, are they trading him at the deadline? I watch for the Rangers, Rupp, because they don't seem afraid to make some moves, and the moves they've made since they announced it haven't worked. So I'm going to say the New York Rangers would be my team to watch if they can't get back in.
That Panarin thing's going to be, I mean, I don't know where that goes as far as I know Artemi Panarin wants to stay in New York, but I don't know if they just try to shake things up if things don't start working for them. But yeah, that's an interesting one that I even think of going back. We talk about the goalie market out there and just talk about teams that want to solidify their goaltending position. I know you got a little bit of trade protection, but like Jonathan Quick looks pretty good. I don't know if that'd be something, just the pedigree of Jonathan Quick too for a playoff team. But yeah, the Rangers, that can go either way because I don't think we really know who they are right now.
Yeah, I think there's a few
and
teams.
I know that recent history tells us Panarin's probably going to resign. Like the big stars, it seems, are all staying on their teams right now. But if they're out of it, now I know he loves New York, and it's a pretty beautiful city, and people, especially the Russian players, love it. There's a real good Russian community there and culture for them to stay. So I get why he'd want to stay there, but I'm kind of curious. Like, the Rangers on paper should be a better team. And this is now 82 games of them being a 27th ranked team in the NHL. This is not a 20 game stretch. This is 80 plus games of bad hockey by the Rangers.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are in that category too. Like, my last question is, I kind of want to flip that question upside down and ask maybe who's a buyer that right now it doesn't look like maybe they're making a push, but with everything being so close, like I'm looking at, maybe the Islanders make a push because they're 13th, but they're actually only 2 points ahead of like someone in 21st, like the Rangers, right? So it's kind of hard. Like, what team in the middle there do you think could maybe be a buyer by the end of this season if they can keep rolling?
I think Detroit has to be that.
It has to be.
I think it's Detroit. It has to. Like, there's a lot of pressure on them, man. That Steve Yzerman, the Yzer plan hasn't come to fruition. And remember last year, Dylan Larkin was pissed and he didn't even hide it. Yeah. He's just like, he basically came out and called them. So to me, it's Detroit all the way. They gotta do something here. They got to get in the playoffs this year. I think there's lots of pressure on that organization, guys in that organization. It's coming from internally. So yes, it's Detroit for me first, Detroit second, and third.
Yeah, Detroit's a good one. The other one I was going to see, I'm just going to pull them up real quick to see kind of where they're at with things. But I feel like Utah is one where they've got to look at it from the standpoint. I know they're in a tough division, but this has been a team that's been trying to get it. And we can say whatever we want about this Utah team and new friend. It's the Coyotes. You know what I mean? Like, so they have struggled to get over the hump, to get and sustain relevancy, to be a playoff team. They have been set up here for, Bill Armstrong has had the luxury of, he's had a ton of draft picks. He's had a ton of cap space in the past, and it wasn't used. And you felt like they were kind of keeping that in the chamber for the right time. And if they continue and be a playoff team or in that mix, they've got to go swing for it this year. And they've got to go do something of significance to get them over the hump.
Yeah, that's the one I was looking at too. I think also maybe honorable mention to like the Blue Jackets, because like at some point you got to do something. I mean, if you're going to re-sign Boone Jenner, like if you're not going to trade him for something at the deadline, then if you can stay somewhere in relevancy, then you gotta make a push at some point for the fan base. And I just think it's one of those years they have. I don't know. They have a good roster. They just need a little bit extra. But that's all I have for you. Fill in the blanks. Brought to you by Bet365.
Yeah, it's what's interesting about it is here we are. It's November 28th. It's after Thanksgiving. Everybody used to be, that's the cutoff date. It's changed this year. It's changed. Well, because most teams are within 4 points anyway. Like if you look at the Eastern Conference before games start today, and they are starting very soon, which is pretty fun if you're a hockey fan. But you look at the Eastern Conference, and right now teams that are more than 4 points out of the playoffs won. The Buffalo Sabres. That's it.
Isn't that crazy?
You look in the West, it's a little bit more. You've got Vancouver, St. Louis, Calgary, and Nashville. And Vancouver is 5 points out. St. Louis is 6. Calgary is 8, and Nashville is 9. So really only 5 teams, which is abnormal this time of year. So I think more teams will stay in it a little bit longer now, unless we start to see more regulation wins, because the overtime wins are keeping a lot of teams closer. And with the more overtime wins, there's more points necessarily right now to make the playoffs. So 91 points isn't going to get you in at this rate right now compared to the last few seasons. So that makes it more entertaining. I do think there's some teams, Rupper, that are in the race that I don't think are really in the race. I think it's a little bit of a merge still, and I don't know how they view it as an organization, but I think the good organizations will be honest with themselves and look, okay, are we really this close? The Pittsburgh Penguins, that can't be a team that's acquiring guys at the deadline. They just can't be. Like that that's not where they're at all. And I know that Crosby wants to win, and I've said, hey, maybe you trade him. Probably not, but Maybe Malkin, though. He's expiring contract. Would he be interested? We'll see. He's like lots of guys. There's very few guys who play their whole career in a team. And I honestly, at the end of the day, don't think it matters, right? Like no one's looking at the Hall of Fame and said, oh, Ray Bourque didn't finish with Boston, and go down the list of other guys who played in a few places. And lots of Hall of Famers have played on multiple teams. No one looks and says, oh, that Paul Coffey wasn't very good because he played on 7 teams. Like, who cares? Like, I think sometimes people try to make more of what it is. It's a comfort level, I think, for some players more than anything, Rupper. But you don't know what you don't know, and you get something that's like, oh, I kind of like it here, and away you go. But there's still, to me, a few teams that they're in the race right now because it's close, but I don't think that they're really in the race.
No, that, I mean, we're going to see that separation, even if it's minuscule because of the way that the standings are this year. You're going to start seeing teams falling out a little bit more, I think, in the next 20 games. Because, again, the NHL season, I've heard it, and we've all heard it put the playoffs, and all three are different. I'd even probably put it more as like 20 game segments. I felt like the game got really different as a player, and you had to be able to adapt and have some longevity in order to thrive. While we're talking, though, one last thing just to throw out there. And I know we've been talking Edmonton a lot, and I talked to you about it on your show as well. I didn't realize 25 games in, and you've got 5 regulation wins. 5. Like that's, can you imagine like that type of pace to have like 15 to 17 wins on the season? Like that's not good. Yeah. And I don't know what that means because you're still in the hunt here, but you're looking at 5. I mean, I've been hooting and hollering all season long that this is a bit of a mirage for the Montreal Canadiens, and they seem to be coming back down to earth a little bit more. They got 7. You know what I mean? The San Jose Sharks have 5 regulation wins. Like Edmonton has 5 regulation wins. That is wild to me.
Yeah, they have. They've not been able to put teams away at all. And it's like I said, their defensive numbers are not good. I know everybody likes to focus just on goaltending because it's easy, but goaltending can be better, no question. But the funny thing is their goaltending is basically being average. If you look at goals saved above expected, what their expected save percentage is supposed to be, the kind of being on the season slightly below. That's it. Not crazy. Your article, I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you wrote it, you would know. You were looking at Wedgewood, and I'm pretty sure his numbers, because everyone's going to say Scott Wedgewood is a Vezina. Dude, he's got the second best goalie environment. Right, his expected, but yes, they're pretty equal, just like Stuart Skinner's is with Edmonton. So, like, am I correct in the way you had that? Well, I didn't have Wedgewood in my article because I didn't think he was being traded, but I was saying that if they found a goalie like a Wedgewood who can come in, I've always liked him as a backup. Like Wedgewood's played great in Colorado, but Wedgewood has played behind the best defensive system. His expected save percentage is .917, which is wild. Now he's doing it, but they're just saying if you just be an average goalie, you should have a .917 in his situation. His numbers have been that though. So I'm not trying to say he's been average, but the numbers, when we're if we're using this scale across the board, he is slightly above average than what any average goaltender would be in that environment. So you know what I mean? So it's such a tedious spot and position to evaluate where guys are at. Because there's going to be some Edmonton fans watching this and be like, we've been screaming this for years. We need another goalie. We need this and that. If you're going to compare some things across the board, Stuart Skinner hasn't been all that bad in some ways. He's had moments of being very bad, but you start looking at that. It's about the environment. What can we expect our goalies to see? How can they thrive in this environment? So that's something that I find really interesting. Maybe it wasn't your article. I came across what you just said there is that Scott Wedgewood, who's the talk of the town, talk of the league, deservingly so. He's been awesome, but he's not lighting the world on fire with some of his numbers. The team is playing really well in front of him. Yeah, that's a very good point. And, good for Wedgewood. He is, you know what? That's what he's supposed to do. He's doing his job. He's done his job. He's got a 918. His expected is 917. So he's basically played as expected. Good. Colorado's being an absolute wagon right now. And I get why you're talking about, could they chase the Boston record of a few years ago? I love records to be broken. That'd be ridiculous. I wonder though, if you're Colorado, you say, meh, Boston, they had 60 wins. They didn't get out of the first round. 2019, Tampa Bay had 60 wins. They didn't get out of the first round. Do we, like, not that you would lose on purpose, but are you going to blow your guts out to get to 60 wins and chase the record? Like, maybe, but
They should be hoping.
It's pretty early.
They should be hoping that Dallas stays in the hunt here, at least pushes a little bit for the Central.
I see. Yeah, so you got meaningful game.
You got to. You have to. This goes back to the 2019 Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, and I've been on teams like that. I was on the Rangers where in 2012, I think Vancouver ended up winning the President's Trophy, but we were in that mix and we were running away kind of with the Eastern Conference, but definitely our division. And when you're that talented, like Colorado is, if they run away with it, you're going to win games because you're so talented. But you can have bad habits creeping in your games. You could play a shitty game in the NHL. Like, you could play a bad team game and win 5-1. Like, Colorado could do that because they're that talented. And it's so tough for coaches, I think, to keep a pulse and keep a thumb on, hey, we got to do this. We got this. What do you mean? We've won 7 of our last 8. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a tough spot to locate, to recognize, and to step on those things when you're running away with your division or President's Trophy. So Colorado, I think the best thing for them is to have another team in the West looking like it's going to be the Dallas Stars, just pushing a little bit to keep you accountable all season long.
Yeah, no, I would, that wouldn't hurt them at all. But man, the Avs are playing great. It is interesting to note though, that they don't have their first, their second, or their third in the upcoming draft. So if they look to want to add at the deadline, they're probably going to have to dip into the draft the year afterwards, and which teams have done before. So it might cause them to lose out on a player because a team might say, no, I want the draft pick right now, and someone else offers me a 2026 second rounder, and you're offering me a second rounder in 2027. I'd rather take the 26, right? I get him in my organization quicker. So now, even if you're in a rebuild, you push those draft picks down the road, that just extends your rebuild. So that might be a small thing.
If they've learned, maybe, like they've almost done too much tinkering and it hasn't helped them in the playoffs. I wonder if now they start.
Yeah, that's fair.
And they don't really have a choice, like you're saying. Maybe this is the perfect storm for them just to kind of stay a little more pat this year.
Yeah. And really, when you're playing this well, like, I think a small tweak's all you need anyway. Why would you make a big splash? That would seem a little bit odd. I know the playoffs are different than the regular season, though. I think we've all learned that. So it'll be fun. Rupper, have a happy Black Friday and the weekend. Hopefully no long drives for you, so you're not pounding another bag of chips and Twizzlers and everything else.
Yeah, no, I'll find a way to stay clean. Keep the body clean today and just relax. So
go for a nice jog.
Yeah. Yes,
lots of games though. Today's couch surfing day, man. This is you can do the one man luge on the couch.
What we just stated. Yeah, so I have to hang out on the couch and watch hockey and not snack today. I don't know. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah, that'll be tough. Good luck with that. That's the rundown, as always, brought to you by Bet365. Have a wonderful weekend.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.